Hold on, please. Getting ready here. 1 second. All right. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Demystifying Microsoft podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Taylor. And today I'm excited to talk about a really practical topic. And I think a topic that's going to interest a lot of you, which is Microsoft Teams, Copilot, Facilitator, and Loop. And really excited to kind of share some of the cool features that I use every day in these products. When I talk about Copilot as a whole, this is often one of the topics that I think is like the first thing I come to. And everybody, when they think AI, they think of all the crazy stories of people automating their worlds. But this is kind of one of those practical things that I use nonstop in Copilot. And so I want to share it with you. So thanks for joining me today. Let's jump in and dig into our topic. So from a high level, what I talk about today is the ways in which Copilot enhances your Teams meeting experience. So if you've ever been in a Teams meeting, obviously these days there's all kinds of assistants coming in to record calls. People are using all kinds of third-party call recording tools. But I really think that the capability that's built into Microsoft 365 Copilot is really compelling, and I want to really dig into it with you today. And it's not just a meeting summary or a meeting notes capability. It really is a deeper capability that provides meeting lifecycle experience that go all the way through, configuring it ahead of time to record automatically, to do Facilitator automatically, and into follow-up where you've got all the data from your meetings in Work IQ to reference through AI in the future. So most people are familiar with the recap capability in Microsoft Teams. So this gets turned on if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. You have the ability to turn on with recording, you get a recap. So when you record or transcribe the meeting, Microsoft automatically builds a recap for you at the end of the call. Now, this capability is also available in Teams Premium, but it's a much more limited feature set. It gives you the recap, but you can't do any sort of AI querying against it or AI querying during the call. So this is really talking about the capabilities that exist in the Copilot version. For business value, for business users, the recap is a great capability. You want to catch up on a call, want to remember what you talked about last week on that call. Recap gives you a really great high-level overview. It covers things like what was talked about, what are action items, and I often find the action item to be the most useful piece of recap, where you can really quickly see like, I've got a number of recurring meetings where I regularly start the meeting by going back and looking at the recap from the previous call, because I have so many meetings I'm in. Sometimes I forget, context, and I can quickly get that context. Now, what's exciting and new is in recent months, recap is no longer just something you read. Microsoft has added a number of things to this. There's intelligent recap, which adds AI-assisted navigation and summary so users can jump straight to decisions, tasks, speakers, topics, or follow-up context much quicker, which is really cool. It's really giving you some ability to find your spot in the meeting. Maybe you're looking for a specific conversation. You're trying to get back to a decision that was made, or you want to hear maybe some of the details of that part of the conversation. It's a really great way to go review that. The other cool features that have been released recently are we now have audio recap and video recap. And if you haven't played with these capabilities, they allow you to do just what it sounds like. You can play an audio recap that is a condensed version of the recap in an audio format. So basically what you read in the recap, it does over audio. And it's a great way maybe to redeem some of that commute time. You're in the car, you need to catch up on a couple meetings you missed. You can go listen to the audio recap and get that same AI recap capability in an audio format. It does get stored on OneDrive, and so you can use it through other scenarios. They also have a video recap now. And what's great about the video recap is they'll filter in a couple short snippets of the video from the call. So you can do it kind of gives you the full audio recap with the video kind of fast forwarding in the background. but then it'll pull in some little snippets and recordings to kind of give you key moments where you can watch and see the conversation. So really gives you an ability to catch up. And for those of us who get double and triple booked for meetings, that we often are interested in all three, but we have to prioritize the one we need to be present for. The ability to use that video recap is a great way to kind of catch back up on meetings and quickly, in a couple of minutes, catch up on what happened. I think you also can do custom summaries if you really want to turn that recap into something more specific. I'm not going to get into that. That can be used for something around like maybe your PMO or QBR process needs a repeatable format. You can dig into the custom summaries where you could choose some of the data, the executive report, and you can turn it into a specific format for custom summaries. The new thing to talk about is so those are really exciting new capabilities in the recap where we're able to run with that high level overview. Now, a quick note on licensing. As we talked about, Teams Premium has some basic versions of these capabilities, but they're much enhanced in the Microsoft Copilot license, the 365 Copilot license. But I want to talk about the new Microsoft 365 Copilot for Business. And what this is it is a Microsoft 365 Copilot license that's designed for companies with under 300 users. It requires a business license as the base. You can't bolt it onto E3 or E5. But if you're under 300 users, why are you using E3 or E5? We've talked about that many times on this podcast, that friends don't let small business friends use E3 or E5 in small business. There's just no reason to do it. Microsoft's built out so much capability in Business Premium and the add-ons that you should be using those SKUs for your small business. Now, when you go to bolt on Microsoft 365 Copilot for Business, the advantage is the business SKU is about 30% cheaper than the full enterprise Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you've been debating about testing Microsoft 365 Copilot, or you've already deployed it, it's definitely worth evaluating at your renewal date if you can move to the business product and save a little bit of money. It's the same product. It's got the same capabilities. There's some very edge case enterprise features in the enterprise SKU that basically nobody needs in small business space. So it's a really great deal to switch to that Copilot for Business SKU. Now we talked about licensing. I do want to talk about my favorite feature that Copilot enables in Teams. And I use this all the time. And it truly makes a big difference in my professional life. And that is the ability to use Facilitator. And you may have seen the Facilitator option when you're scheduling a meeting in Outlook. You might have seen it in the 3 dots when you're in a meeting. When you drop that down, there's a turn on Facilitator button. And you go, okay, fine, I'll turn on Facilitator. And at first you may think that Facilitator is just there to keep track of the meeting. And it does do a good job of that. If you've been on a Teams meeting with Facilitator, it provides these little notes throughout the meeting. It reminds you that, hey, the meeting's gone. Here's the agenda you guys talked about for this meeting that's in the meeting notes. Here's the other variables about what's happening in the meeting. Hey, you're at the halfway point. You've got 5 minutes left. So it's useful for kind of providing that maybe assistant sort of a role that says, hey, by the way, I'm going to help you stay on track in this meeting. And that can be really useful for keeping track of things. Maybe you get a little carried away in the call and you're not keeping track of when the call runs out of time. So super helpful for that sort of capabilities. It also sometimes will bring in real-time highlights as you're going. But what I'm finding is that in my experience, the recap functionality in Teams is a very high-level overview of the call. It is a summarized, AI-generated recap and review of the meeting. Facilitator creates a much more detailed set of notes, especially if you're getting very technical in a meeting, maybe talking about to-do list items, responsibilities, roles and responsibilities, detailed review of goals or processes. Facilitator actually writes its own set of notes. And those notes are really powerful. And Microsoft saves those in a format that you can access from the Teams interface for the meeting. So you can find that in the UI there. But if you're paying attention, you can find that those notes actually get saved in a loop document. And that's where some really interesting power happens. Um, Number one, the big thing that happens in the loop document is it's a much more detailed set of notes than the recap. So that could be really useful if, maybe there was tasks assigned, there were detailed discussions, and sometimes you want that detailed set of notes. Secondly, the tasks that are assigned in the loop document can be turned into planner tasks, which is a superpower if you use Planner for managing some of your to-dos. Maybe you have some users who use Microsoft To Do. You can take those notes and you can assign those tasks directly from the notes. So you don't have to retype them or re-import them. They can be assigned there. The next thing you can do is you can actually take those loop documents and put them into a loop workspace so that you can correlate and collect all the meeting notes from a series, and you can access those meeting notes from the loops environment, which makes it easier to kind of go back and look at historical meetings. So that's a super powerful capability to kind of keep track of what's discussed in meetings and keep track of it. You can also type into those notes. So if you're maybe wanting to do more of a visual outline as you're going, you can use that same, the notes tab will populate in the Teams meeting, but you could also do it in the Loop UI, and you can start to fill in details on the notes that Microsoft is creating as you're in the meeting. So it's really helpful. It's got a number of different things. It's got an agenda, decisions, topics, tasks that were assigned, and really great capability to really drive that. And it really is valuable as a later thing. You want to go back and look at the notes. You want to reference them. You've got that capability in your notes. The other big thing that happens, and maybe something that some people don't know about Loop, is under the hood, Loop is using a document format called Markdown. You can't really see it in the Loop interface because it just looks like a OneNote document. It looks just like a Notepad document. But under the hood, Microsoft's actually storing that data in Markdown format. And Markdown is a really useful format for AI to understand the data. It's one of the better ways for AI to pull in and reference the data. And so as AI references that data, you're able to use AI against your meeting notes. And specifically, Loop and Facilitator notes seem to really populate Work IQ data. We've talked about Work IQ before in previous calls. Work IQ is kind of Microsoft's database about you as a user of Microsoft 365. Your team, your common tasks, your role, kind of the way you interact with AI, kind of your common interactions on Teams and in email. And it builds this understanding of you, who you are, your organizational context, your data, the documents you've built, the things you've sent, the things you've done. And that Facilitator notes and those loop documents go right into Work IQ. And what you find is when you turn on Facilitator, you're able to ask more and more detailed questions of Copilot. And it has that context because it can reference those loop documents. So it's a really powerful tool to really drive some deeper integration of your AI into your day-to-day work environment. One of the caveats to keep in mind is that Facilitator sometimes takes a few minutes to populate while you're in the meeting. It's not always processing the data notes in real time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm sure there's some metering on the back end, availability of servers to process the data. But be patient with that. If you really want it to be real time, sometimes that's a challenge. But for me, the value of the Facilitator loop is post meeting when I want to go review those notes and I want to review it with AI. Another thing to call out then is once you get used to using Facilitator and the loop notes it creates, you're going to want it on for every meeting. You're going to want it on by default. And this is especially true of series. When you've got a meeting series, maybe you've got a team meeting that's every day on a Tuesday, and you want those Facilitator notes because you want to be able to reference over time the conversations, pull in previous conversations, which Loop and AI and Facilitator are getting better and better at. You want that loop, that Facilitator capability in the recording to happen automatically. And if that's your desire, one of the things you can do is you can build yourself a meeting template. But before you get to the meeting templates, let me just talk about how you would do it for a series as I'm thinking this through as I'm explaining it to you. When you create a meeting series in Outlook, one of the things you can do is you can go into the settings while you're creating the meeting. And I am actually going to share my screen here and show you this because I think the demo is useful and I can talk you through what I'm seeing. So give me a second to share my screen here. Share a window. Here we go. So here's my Teams meeting here, and I'm creating a meeting. We're going to do a little Office Space reference, and we got a meeting with the Bobs. So we've got a meeting with the Bobs. You've got your normal Outlook environment here. Now, I'm using New Outlook. I know not everybody loves New Outlook, but that's what I've been using lately. And we're going to use a coworker here. We got a meeting with the Bobs. So we're going to invite Robert. So as soon as I invite Robert, now it becomes a Teams meeting automatically, right? Because it sees that there is a Teams meeting here. Well, on the bottom here, you see, first of all, that Facilitator is off for this meeting, turn on. I have a one button click to turn this on. So I can click on that. Now Facilitator is enabled. But there's a few more options here under options. And let's see if this shows up. It does. So you can see here, I can come in here. I can change things like who can bypass the lobby. For certain orgs, that can be helpful if you've got restrictive lobby settings. You want to make it less restriction. You can turn on some of your other advanced Teams premium capabilities like advanced protection. You can choose roles if you've got limitations on co-organizers and etc. But down here at the bottom under record and transcribe, I've got the ability to turn on recording and transcribing. And if I go a little further, I can turn on Facilitator. So that's where I can set my meeting series. So we'll hit apply. We're going to come back to this save as a template button because this is key. We're going to hit apply. And now I've set this meeting to not only have Facilitator on, but it is automatically going to record and transcribe. Now I just have to go here to scheduler and say it's recurring and it's once a week. Now, every time this meeting kicks off every week, even if I'm not there to remember to do it, recording, transcription, and Facilitator are turned on automatically. And that's what starts to build this ongoing work IQ loop capability that the meeting series starts to get intelligent and Facilitator starts to be able to pull in data from previous meetings and give you context and leave that paper trail of loop documents that you can go and review. Now, I mentioned this save as a template option. So you come in here and you set all your settings. You go, oh, you know what? I'd like everyone to bypass the lobby. I want recording and transcriber turned on. And I want Facilitator on. And pretty much every meeting I schedule, I am going to want this capability. So how do I not have to go click 3 or 4 times? So if you click the Save as Template button, you can give it a name, test template, and you can put a description on it. I'm not going to save it because I already have one that does this. But once you save it as a template, then you get a new capability, and I'm going to show you how to use that, which is you can now schedule meetings. And from Jump Street, you can use that capability. But I'm going to clean my calendar up here real quick. You don't need to see all the crazy meetings I'm in. Let me show you Outlook again here. So now here I'm in Outlook. And let's say I would like to schedule a meeting using my template. You come up here under the drop down, and you now have templates under here in the calendar view. And if I click Nate's template, I get a meeting. You don't see it popping up because I'm only showing that first meeting. But the meeting I just popped up has Teams already enabled, Facilitator's on, recording and transcribing is on, and everyone can bypass the lobby. So with one click, I get my default settings for the meeting. And now I'm getting all these incredible features around recording, around recap, video cap, recap, audio recap. I've got my loop document that's generated with all my tasks and my to-dos and my detailed notes. And really allows me to very quickly turn meetings into a very productive capability with me. And so I'm really thrilled that they added this this template capability just to simplify the ability to drive those capabilities. And honestly, for me, this is probably one of the most usable ways that I use AI. I use this every day, and it's probably one of the key things I use from Copilot. And that is the ability to keep up with my meetings. I'm in a lot of meetings. I lead a couple of teams. I tell my kids I'm a professional conference call attender. and my ability to go back and say, what did we talk about in that meeting? Or I can go hit Copilot and say, hey, give me an update on recent interactions with this customer. With that facilitator notes, I not only get recent emails, maybe recent Teams threads about that customer, but it has all my meeting context, pulls that in and says, hey, you met with them, you had this conversation, here's the status, here's links to all this data. And I can quickly get my brain wrapped around maybe a customer that I've met with once a month for the last 3 months, but I can't remember where we are in the project. That happens to me a lot. Let me get status of the project before I jump into a meeting with them. This ability with recordings, with Loop, with Facilitator, and Work IQ allows me to quickly bypass that and get up to speed with a high level recap, high level to-do list, and jump right back in and be really productive in those meetings. So if you're using Teams, I highly recommend getting the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, Copilot for Business if you're under 300 users, and test this capability out. And if you've got executives you're busy in a lot of calls, this is a great capability to show them. It really saves a lot of time and really drives a lot of productivity out of AI. So hopefully that was helpful to you. If you want to learn more, we're always happy to walk you through this, give you a demo. There's a Teams trial available now. Microsoft just released that in the last couple months. Sorry, not Teams trial. Excuse me. A Copilot trial. So we can now do trial licenses of Copilot if you'd like to test it out and see how it works without having to commit for a year. We are happy to walk you through that, get you those trial licenses, show you how to use it, and you're going to be blown away and get addicted to that capability because it's such a productivity boost. And it's one of the ways in which AI is just made my life better. So hopefully that was helpful. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you listening today. And we will catch you on the next episode of the Demystifying Microsoft podcast.